Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Your Inner Guru 1 Hour Free Experience. This is Kara Brandt, and I'm excited to be here tonight and excited to share with you a little bit more about what Discover Your Inner Guru is all about. We live in a crazy time, don't we? Like, crazy time. So much is going on, and it's not just, I've been talking to so many clients and friends, and it's not just about what's going on in the world. For some reason, everyone is feeling a lot of stuff and going through a lot of stuff personally, as well as kind of dealing with the dynamics that are happening out in the world as well. And so it's becoming increasingly difficult to, I think, find peace and joy and fulfillment in life when there's just so much, for some people, impending doom that people are experiencing in the world right now. And so what do you do with all of that? How do you continue living life? How do you not just curl up in a ball and quit, right? I used to be in that space. There were many times over the years that I have tried to quit and curl up in a ball, literally curled up in a ball in the fetal position, begging God to take me now because life was so difficult. Since I was probably age 8 is when I started having my first really noticeable chronic illness, chronic pain symptoms. I would have really bad restless leg at night, and by the time I was 13, I had put on just 30 pounds overnight, and I was just completely debilitated with anxiety, chronic fatigue, and depression. And for the next 23 years or so, I was in and out of flare-ups of some kind. And over the years, there were some diagnoses given. I had caught parvo, which is a disease that kills dogs. So it basically destroyed my immune system. I caught Epstein-Barr virus, which does the same thing and stays in your system pretty much forever and then flares up whenever you're under stress. And then I had hypothyroidism. And at one point I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So I had this list of things that were diagnoses. I don't know if that's the right word, but I was completely just debilitated at times with chronic pain and just wanting to die, honestly. And when I was well into adulthood, and my oldest was 8 years old, he was going through some testing for ADHD and anxiety and things like that, and I had this huge revelation and realized that, oh my gosh, this is me. Like, I am totally ADHD. I am totally on the spectrum. I also have an anxiety disorder. And so I actually went and officially got diagnosed and tested and everything. And it explained so much about my childhood and how the anxiety I was dealing with on a regular basis and how my brain functioned predisposed me to chronic illness and adrenal fatigue and chronic pain. And so that was when things really started to shift. But I tell you what, for many, many years, I believed I was the victim to my life. I was the victim to my circumstances. I was definitely in a space where I believed I was, there was really no way out. And so I kind of was a slave to my emotions. And there were a few times, there's one time in particular that I remember that I had 2 little ones under the age of 4. And, oh, this is going to bring up some stuff for me. So I was a young mom, and I was just barely functioning. And I was in so much pain. And I had been to doctors, I tried diets, I had tried so many different things, but I was still, hey Kayleen, welcome. So I had tried a lot of things. I had that weren't working, and I had very limited knowledge. I was kind of going through to the medical route of things. And I didn't know about emotional release. I didn't know how the mind and the heart, the state of the mind and the heart, and how that affected you physically. I just didn't have that knowledge then. So we're just going to let a few people in here that are coming in. Hi guys, I've got y'all on mute, so there will be a time when I'll give you guys a chance to pipe in if you need to. We've gone ahead and just started here, and I'm recording so you can go back and listen to what you've missed. I'm just kind of sharing my story here, a little bit about where I've been and what has led me to the work that I do. And you know, we're living in such a crazy time right now that it's, I think, causing a lot of people, forcing a lot of people to really look inward, to really connect with what matters most, to really look themselves in the mirror and go, okay, what's important to me? And I can either, we're faced with this decision of I can either become a slave and a victim to all these triggers and all this stress and all this craziness that's happening in the world or happening inside of me, or I can do something about it. Well, for many, many years, as I was struggling with chronic illness and depression and anxiety and just debilitating physical pain that no doctor could figure out, I wanted solutions. I wanted to figure it out. And so I was proactively searching for those solutions. And I just kept hitting brick wall after brick wall after brick wall because I was only searching where I knew where to search. And that was in Western medicine. And I'm not anti-Western medicine. I'm so, so grateful because I have 4 babies that were safely brought into this world because of modern medicine and all the goodness that is there. But what I didn't understand for so many years, that I was dealing with an acute case of anxiety that connected to ADHD, brain wiring, but also connected to childhood abuse and neglect. And the PTSD, well, it's really CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic disorder. And I didn't really understand that all of those emotions and all that trauma and all those triggers related to that trauma, I had no understanding how that was affecting my physical body. And so I began just praying, and I got desperate. And, you know, I started to kind of share an experience of when I had 2 littles and I was in excruciating pain. And that was a time when I was very, very serious about leaving this planet. And I prayed and prayed and prayed for God to take my life because it was so excruciating. And I had kind of gotten into the space where I had led myself to believe that my family was better off without me because I just wasn't even functioning. I had, you know, dishes were piled up in the sink and they were literally moldy because they'd been there for so long. And my laundry was never made it to the drawers. It was hardly ever washed. It was hardly, and Rob would come home, my husband, from work, and I would be on the couch and the kids would just be, I'd have the TV on because I was desperate. And so they become totally boob tube addicts because I just couldn't even move or function. And so I got to this point where I was like, I am so done. I just can't. And I was in so much excruciating pain and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And so I just began praying for God to take me. Just somehow, can you just send like a truck to just hit me when my kids aren't in the car with me? And there was this point where I was sitting in the driveway and I had just gone to get groceries. And it took every ounce of energy that I had to even do it. And Rob had stayed home with the kids. I think it was a Saturday. And I was sitting in the car and I felt like something possessed me and just took over me. And all of these thoughts about, oh my gosh, there's this road just around the corner and there's this sort of ditch that if I just accidentally drove off into that ditch, there was all this overgrown trees and bushes and everything, no one would even notice. And it would be over and I could just be at peace. And I remember sitting in my car going like totally convinced that my kids and my husband would be better off without me. And I put my hand on the gear shift and I went into reverse and I started rolling backwards out of the driveway. And it was so weird. Something literally grabbed my hand pushed the gear shift into park, and I heard this, it felt like a scream in my head, like someone was sitting next to me, but nobody really was, but somebody was sitting next to me and yelled at me and said, no, they are not better off without you. There's no way they are better off without you. And you put that car in park and you get in that house and you put those groceries away and you just keep going. And I don't know who that was, but I'm so grateful for whoever that was that saved me that day. So I totally get what it's like to be in the very depths of despair. I totally get what it's like to want to just be done. And so many people are in that space right now. And fast forward 10 years or more, I guess it's been more than that, for like 15 years. And I've discovered so many more tools that have helped me heal my heart and from all of that CPTSD and has helped me learn how to work with the ADHD brain and the anxiety that I naturally deal with on a day-to-day basis because of how my brain is wired. And I've learned how to master my emotions. I've learned how to see the good in the midst of the darkness. And it's a really amazing, amazing, powerful place to be. And some days I still experience physical pain. Some days my body still shows me signals that something is out of alignment emotionally or spiritually or mentally. And that's the truth, you guys. We are not just physical beings. We are spiritual beings. We have minds and we have a heart that feels. And so we're emotional beings. And so there's all these parts of us that work together to create the whole. And if we're only supporting one part of it, like for example, for years I supported my spirit and I always like connected with God and read my scriptures and said my prayers because that's what we were taught to do. Like if I would just read my scriptures more, I'd feel better. Well, it didn't take any of my physical pain away, but I do believe that it carried me through some of the darkest periods of time. And so there was support there, but I wasn't eating healthy at the time. And so I wasn't really supporting my physical body in the way that it needed in order to thrive and be healthy. And vice versa. We can get to the gym and we can eat super healthy, but if we're not attending to emotions that come up for us that can cause a low vibration frequency in our body or blocks in our body and are causing us emotional pain, if we suppress that, if we stuff that, if we push it to the side or we ignore it, which is really how I grew up believing that I had to be tough. I had to suck it up. I have 12 out of 13 kids and there was no time or resources for me to cry, for me to be attended to. And so I learned to suppress. I learned to put on a happy face and pretend like everything was okay, because there's also this cultural belief in religious culture that you have to think positive and be grateful no matter what. And that's actually really harmful and damaging and toxic to force somebody to skip through the feeling, the authentic emotions part, to skip through, to try to kind of skim over the pain that someone feels can actually be really damaging to a soul. And so in Guru, what I say I, but it's really we, God and I, he's been right beside me, showing me every step of the way, kind of what gets to be tweaked here and there and what gets to happen. And it's sort of a compilation of a lot of different gurus that I have learned from over the years. And I think I counted at least 10 different either colleagues of mine that weren't exactly my mentor, or could have been a book that I read, but people that just kind of have come into my life that I believe God put into my life to teach me the next breadcrumb and the next piece. And so I've kind of brought all of these pieces together in a really unique format, and it's super simple. And basically, I'm helping the individual. I'm hoping, at least it's my intention, to help you in a really simple, practical application approach, learn how to identify what you're experiencing, to give you permission to step into a space of observation. I call it observation free of shame and judgment. And this is a really magical land. I'm telling you right now, like this space of observation free of shame or judgment is magic, and it's so powerful. It's very much a human nature thing to judge everything that's coming up, to judge our feelings. Like if we start crying, it could be cultural programming, or it could just be like that fear of being vulnerable, right? We don't necessarily want to be seen as weak in front of people. I certainly don't. My personality is naturally like, I don't want to be wrong or seen as vulnerable or weak. And so I've had to really learn the power of vulnerability. And we talk about that too in Guru. We talk about the power of vulnerability, and that is one of the most foreign things that I bring up in the course, because so many people have been programmed, I was too, so I get it, to think that being uncomfortable or feeling discomfort or feeling vulnerability is bad and wrong, you know. And it's like the brain goes into fight or flight, like danger, 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 and we want to run away and we want to skip out on the uncomfortable parts because it hurts, right? And so we have that warning signal in our brain that fires when we're possibly in danger. But the thing is, we're not always actually in danger. It just, we're sort of wired to think we are if something gets uncomfortable. So we get to kind of overcome the natural man, as we've heard in the scriptures, and learn to master, like talk to that lower brain and say, hey, we're not actually in danger. You know, we're actually safe. Nobody's dying here. You're just feeling some discomfort. There's some emotion here that you're feeling. And so I kind of talk you through how powerful it is to really sit in that vulnerability, to really allow yourself to feel it. If you don't feel it, here's the truth. If you don't allow yourself to really feel the authentic emotions, even if it's not based in truth, like maybe you're just really ticked off at your spouse or your partner or your kid, and they've done something, you know, like in your mind something really wrong, but in reality they're just being themselves and they didn't really mean to hurt you. And in your head you come up with this story about how they're stupid and and or how they're out to get you, or you know, whatever that human brain does to convince you that something's really wrong and that you're in danger and that there's a problem. And so your brain goes into that human space. And so learning how to say, oh, wait a second, all right, okay, that might not be true, but I'm going to let myself feel it. I'm going to let myself just be in this emotion for a minute and honor that, you know. And I see us all as a bunch of toddlers here on earth just learning how to walk. If we were to treat ourselves like we would treat our little toddler, I've got a little toddler right now that throws epic tantrums and it's fabulous. And if I ignore him and brush him to the side, he screams louder. And he doesn't leave me alone until I pay attention. But when I immediately notice him and say, oh, and I validate or I acknowledge how he's feeling, he calms down immediately. All I have to say is, that hurt, or you didn't want to do that. Is that right? And he nods and he stops screaming and he breathes. And it's just that acknowledgement that we sometimes need, even though most of us are grown-ups. But there's still little children parts of us that haven't been heard because maybe we weren't in those times of trauma or those moments when our brain was still developing and we somehow took on beliefs when we weren't really able to see reality because our brains were not fully developed, right? And it was hurtful to our heart, and maybe someone didn't listen to us or acknowledge it, and those parts of us are still sitting in there unattended to and unhealed. And so that's where triggers come from, right? So part of Guru is learning how to honor and hold space. I call it holding space, where you're just kind of like, stop your life for a second and breathe and just notice, okay, I'm upset right now. Why am I upset? Because sometimes we get triggered and we're not really sure why, right? And those are from past experiences, memories that have been triggered in our subconscious brain that say, hey, at one point in time we were in danger, or we were in pain, or we were hurting. And so we want attention. That part of you like is kind of signaling that, hey, hello, I need a hug, or I need to cry it out. I need someone to just listen to me for a minute. And so so we'll do some of that in Guru. We'll talk about how do we handle those triggers when they come up for us? And what does that mean? And so in this space, I'm going to kind of rewind and go back to this idea of observation free of shame or judgment. And it's such a magical land. It's so cool because you guys, I grew up in such a shame-filled environment. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It was, and I hesitate in saying anything because my heart loves my mom and papa. Like, I love them, and I know they just did their best with what they had. And sometimes when people try so hard, they miss the mark, right? And so there was a lot of kind of cult-like over, looking beyond the mark, control, we have to do this in order to get to heaven, and fear of messing up. And so I grew up with so much shame and so much criticism and judgment that I was trained to judge everything. And so when I was in my deepest, when I was sickest, and the doctors were saying, well, we can't really find anything wrong, maybe it's all in your head, then I would go into all this shame and judgment and say, well, it probably is all in my head. I'm probably stupid and dumb and don't deserve to live. And I mean, the list goes on about I'm not worthy of, maybe I've been too wicked and I'm not righteous enough, so I need to read my scriptures more, I need to pray more, so there's just so much of this. And I think that it's also a human nature thing to go, what is this? This must mean something about me. If this result is happening, then that must mean ... This must mean that I'm a bad person, or that I'm not working hard enough, or, right? We live in a very achievement-based society. In school, it's all about getting the ribbons and getting, and there's the competitions, and kids learn early on to compare themselves with other children. And I don't think anyone's meaning to create that space, but it's just human nature. It just happens. And, so we get in this striving, judgment mentality. So in observation, shame and judgment aren't allowed. They try to creep in sometimes, and I teach people that, okay, you're going to feel that shame and judgment come in, and then you just kind of talk to it like it's someone who invited themselves to the party and they weren't really invited. And you just say, hey, shame and judgment, I see you. I understand why you're here, because that's what we've done for a really long time. But we're not doing that anymore. So we're just going to watch. We're going to just watch this unfold a little bit. So, and as you're watching, free of this shame or judgment, it's really amazing what you'll notice. You'll start to notice things about how your body is reacting to. You might start noticing beliefs that come into your mind. Oh, that's interesting. I just had this thought that my husband doesn't love me. Well, that's not true. Is that even true? But those are the kind of things that kind of start to, it's like a movie reel. It kind of goes, across the movie screen of your mind, and you kind of watch it like you're in a lab. You're a lab tech, and you're just observing this science experiment of your life, and how your brain is programmed to think, and how you're programmed to behave in certain situations because of those triggers, right? So discover your inner guru. We're going to really dive deep into this space of observation free of judgment, and we're going to really learn what it looks like to be comfortable with vulnerability. And so what happens in this magical land that I call observation free of shame or judgment is like suddenly you will be open to not only new perspectives, like you'll be able to kind of reframe your old way of thinking, because you'll start to notice details that maybe you wouldn't have noticed in the heat of the emotion. And so it also involves like taking the time to feel it, right? We've kind of already talked about that. So after you've felt it, and then you're kind of giving yourself permission to really observe your patterns, observe your thoughts, observe the emotions and the beliefs and the physical symptoms that might be associated with that, then you start to learn things. You start to notice those patterns. You start to see and create a distinction, and this is a really powerful distinction between what feels real to you versus what's actually true. What feels real it's important that that's acknowledged, and that you kind of allow that to move, right? In the very beginning of observation, you're like, oh, this is what I'm feeling. Okay, let's just feel it. And you kind of move through it. And then you create this space of observation. We're like, okay, well, let's see, let's watch this unfold. A good friend of mine, and he's a motivational speaker. His name is Bob Cattell. Wonderful, wonderful man, really interesting individual. And we came into each other's lives, and it was just serendipitous, divine orchestration, I believe. And I haven't talked to him in a really long time, actually. But he was just in my life for that period of time that I needed. And I remember him asking me this random question, because at the time I was still kind of running around like a chicken with my head cut off. You know, I still had a lot of nervous, anxious energy, and I hadn't really learned what it was like to settle into myself and really connect to that core spirit body connection, where I could just kind of observe and be at peace regardless of what was happening. I was kind of still allowing all the stress of the world and what was going on in my heart and my mind kind of own me a little bit, or a lot sometimes. And so he said, what happens, or what do you do? Like, if you had a bowl of muddy water, like a fish bowl, imagine like a clear fish bowl of muddy water. If you wanted that water to get clean, what would you do? Like, how would you get that water clean? And I didn't even hesitate. I was like, boil it. You gotta boil it. And okay, if I wanted to drink it, then boiling might purify it, but it wouldn't necessarily take the grains of sand out of the water. So my way of living life was to fight, right? Was to get in there and create more chaos to try to fix things and make things happen. And in Guru, I teach you the beauty of being still. And the answer that he gave me was, well, that's one way to go about it. But what if you just sat there and watched? What if you just let that bowl sit there and you just waited for that dust, for all that mud to settle to the bottom? And that's what this space of observation does for us. It allows us to, it helps us to kind of move through the emotion, right? And it allows us to some time to breathe and calm down our parasympathetic nervous system that's saying, danger, 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 right? To kind of come back down to a level of homeostasis. And then we get to kind of watch as the dust settles, and we're just curious. It's a space of curiosity. It's a space of fascination, that we're watching this dust settle, and we're allowing ourselves to learn as it settles. As the water becomes clear, we begin to learn things. We begin to make connections and see patterns of behavior and thought. And like, for example, oh, interesting, I noticed that every time I go into big groups, I get anxious. Wow, I don't think I ever noticed that before. See, those are the kind of things you start, okay, and then you go to another big gathering and you notice that same thing. And this was part of my journey of discovering that I'm an empath. You know, an empath is someone who literally can feel physically what someone else is going through emotionally. And sometimes it can be, if you're not aware of that, it can really weigh you down, because you learn that you're carrying a lot of emotions that isn't even yours, doesn't even belong to you, right? So in this observation, you learn so much. You learn what belongs to you, what's yours. You learn the patterns of behavior. You kind of start to create that distinction, like I mentioned before, between what feels real versus what's actually true. And as you acknowledge what feels real, and then you step into this space of what I call just full transparency and honesty. It's like you're looking yourself in the mirror and you're getting real. This is where you pull up your big girl panties. After you've felt all the feels, right? You pull up your big girl panties and you say, okay, it's time for me to be really honest with myself about how I'm showing up, how I'm contributing to this, and I'm taking full responsibility for my part in this. And this is free of shame and judgment. And it's so cool when there's no shame or judgment there. It's like so much easier to own it. But then you're also recognizing how the other person is actually showing up for you in how, not just how it feels real to you, but how it's actually true. And so I talk you through and help you kind of cultivate that skill of like, how do I recognize that? How do I make that distinction? And we'll go into like deeper techniques and ideas of like how to really enhance your awareness. And so the beautiful thing about Discover Your Inner Guru, so many beautiful things. I'm clearly super excited about what the potential that this can, how this can bless people's lives, is not only can we see more clearly, right, and connect to the truth, and really learn how to quiet our minds, come to a level of peace in our hearts, but what it does is it clears all the clutter so that we can actually hear inspired thought. We can actually open the channels of communication to God, the universe, spirit guides, whatever you want to call it, to receive divine personal revelation for your life. When there's so much noise, you know, whether it's from childhood trauma and triggers, you know, and you're kind of stuck in the hamster wheel of reacting to life rather than really seeing what's around you and proactively saying, I choose to show up this way regardless of what other people are doing, like shifting out of what I call unconscious reaction. And it's a hamster wheel space, right? We all get just really stuck in that, and we're all weary. It's tiring, it's exhausting, because so much of the energy that we're dealing with every day isn't even like truth, right? We're either worried and fearful of like what happened in the past, or we're thinking about what hasn't even happened yet in the future, so it's not even real yet or true because it hasn't happened yet. And we aren't able to be fully present with what's actually happening in our lives, and so we miss a lot. We miss living. And we look back and we see our kids grow up before our eyes, and all the regrets start flooding in of like, oh, coulda, woulda, shoulda. And we start noticing things that, oh, I wish I had done that. And then we start living in the past again and regret. And I mean, I decided that I didn't want to live like that anymore. I didn't want my kids to remember a mom who was laying on the couch all day long every day. I wanted to go play and run with them. I was an athlete. I played basketball since I was little, and I had the varsity high school coach was scouting me from 3rd grade. And then I got so sick that I couldn't play anymore. And so my spirit craves movement, and I crave, and so I didn't want to be that mom anymore. And so I want to be someone who is so comfortable in my own skin that it doesn't matter what anyone says to me or does to me. I still have the capacity and the emotional intelligence to have compassion for them. Can you guys imagine if we all learned, and I'm still not there yet. I still have some learning and self-mastery to go with just anyone saying or doing anything to me. But I know what it feels like to have some level of that mastery, and it's a really powerful feeling, you guys, because it honestly really wouldn't matter. It doesn't matter what happens to you, because you are able to see the good, and you're able to have the skill set. Like, you guys are all going to become guru ninjas. I'm telling you right now, like, you become a freaking ninja of how to, like, you see something coming, you feel a trigger, and you will learn and develop these simple tools I'm going to teach you in Guru, what to do with it when this stuff comes up for you, right? And it's just a really beautiful power thing. So we have about 25 minutes left. And what I would like to do, I think I've talked your heads off enough. Those of you that were actually on here, thank you so much for joining in. Let's see, we've got Kayleen, and we've got Mila, and we've got Becky. So glad you guys are on here. So what I would love it if you guys could unmute yourselves. And I'm actually using my phone today because my computer was being weird, and so I've never done a Zoom on my phone like this before. So unmute yourselves, and I would love to actually spend some time with, since there's only 3 of you on here, I'd love to spend some time with each of you and maybe talk you through a stressor that has come up for you recently and kind of show you how this works. Would anybody willing to? Oh, can you guys hear me okay? Can you guys give me a thumbs up? Hopefully I haven't just been talking and I saw a message saying that my mic was muted. Oh, we're good. Okay. Hi, Kate. So good to see you.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming on.
I'm not my best. I've been a little under the weather the
Oh,
last couple of days, so I'm here. But you wanted to walk through a couple of things. You know, sometimes I needed to hear this again today to, with to let the dust settle and observe. I found myself going through a little bit of what I did after I lost my baby 24 years ago. And that was being busy, so I wouldn't have to feel. And um, for whatever reason, I'm being busy again, and not quite sure if I'm just getting caught up in being busy, or if there's some other things that are surfacing that I don't want to address. Does that make sense?
it makes total sense. And I think it's a really powerful observation in that full transparency and honesty of you just saying, you know, I'm willing to consider that I'm running away from feelings right now, that I'm trying to avoid feeling, so I'm going to be busy. So that right there is a really powerful observation. And you're going right into that transparency and honesty with yourself of like, okay, here we go. And that's a great opening the door into observation.
It's been crazy. Last year, 2019, I was feeling good about myself, lost 89 pounds, did really well. And 2020, something happened after I had my birthday in January. I don't know, and gained 40 pounds back. And I'm just like, it's almost like I'm uh, in quicksand, um, like being just, it's just on this dominoes, just keep this spiraling thing. The scales keep going up and up and up, and I'm just like, I'm having a hard time being in control of what I'm eating, and I think a lot of that is food. It goes back to when I was a little girl. Food is always there when other things aren't, and feels the sweetness of things when maybe other things don't. Um, and we all know that 2020, we've had a lot of unsweet things happening. And so I need to get things, I would like to get things turned around. And it's really interesting because I haven't been on Facebook for a long time. And when I happened to, thought I'm just going to get on Facebook, the first thing that came on was you were live today.
Oh, awesome.
And, and I'm just like, you know, I need to listen to her and I need to get on tonight. And so there's a reason. There's a reason why why I'm here. I think there's no accidents in things. So um, it's time. We've got one more quarter left in this year, and this last few weeks of the year can be powerful. And I know that. I know that. And anyway, that's kind of where I am a little bit without going into a lot of other details.
Well, first of all, thank you for being vulnerable in front of other people that you don't know. I know you and I know each other, but I just want to thank you because when you allow yourself to do that, you're helping other people. Like I guarantee it that they're going to be able to learn. So you've created a really great, like opening the door to awareness here of like, okay, I know where I was. Something happened in January of 2020. I'm not sure what it is yet, and that's okay. Because right now, like you're just seeing this muddy bowl of water, and it's like you're dealing with the consequences of having the scale go up. And what else are you feeling? Are there emotions? Is there any judgment that has come up for you of like, well, Kayleen, what has there been any kind of like, well, what happened? What are you doing? You know, like, and what has come up for you in there? Like, what are kind of some emotions or some thoughts that have come up with you so far?
Um, a lot of different things. Feel like I'm a failure,
Hmm.
which is a long time, many, many year. thing that I've had to deal with. Feeling like I'm a failure, frustration, just feeling like I'm having a hard time keeping up with everything. Organization with my meal planning, for what I haven't, I haven't been. I feel like I'm just going with the seat of my pants. And I have 10 stitches keeping it together.
And they're starting to come apart. I know that feeling. Oh, I know.
Literally, I mean,
yeah.
but
Literally.
I really don't know what happened when I had my birthday. Part of it was feeling like um, I have 10 children, 10 living, and only 4 out of 10 called me on my birthday. I shouldn't let that bother me, but it did. And then there's a couple of other things that happened that I let program in my mind that there's no way you can do it. You can't hit 100 pounds. You can't do it. There's no way. So guess what? I didn't. And now I'm farther away than I was before. And I feel like I'm just going through the motions. And that's exactly what I did when I lost my baby. I did that for 17 years. I was there for my kids, but I wasn't there. And I feel like I'm doing the same thing. And I'm just like, Kayleen, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you condemning yourself? Why are you being hard on yourself? And I keep trying to work through things and not quite getting to the root. And I think this is probably why I need to go through your class again, your course again. Because when I went through it before, it was powerful. And I know you've made some updates and some tweaks.
It's very different. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So well, I know that there's a reason why you fell on my lap today.
Well, and there's a reason why God told me not to start. I was supposed to start this last Monday, and I just kept feeling it's not time. And so I postponed it for another week. So that's cool. So let's come back to you on this. I kept hearing, I feel like a failure. And there were a couple of other emotions or beliefs that came up for you. If you were to highlight just the top three, one was I'm a failure, or I feel like a failure. I heard something about I'm not. Frustration. What else?
Frustrated with myself.
Okay.
That I have let myself fail.
Okay.
That I gave in to wrong choices.
Okay.
It's like I'm out of control.
So he'll go ahead and take a minute. Oh, okay. So out of control. So I'm a failure, frustration.
I'm out of control and just want to give up.
Out of control and I want to give up. So those are four.
If other people don't care, why should I?
Okay. Okay. So let's see. What was the first one? I feel like a failure. I'm frustrated. I want to give up and I feel out of control. So let's take those four and go ahead and just connect with that. Let yourself feel, take a deep breath, connect to the breath, and just, okay, I'm feeling this failure. Where is failure in my body? Connect with where failure is sitting in your body.
Well, I know where it is. It's in the liver and the pancreas.
Okay, the liver and the pancreas. Okay, now connect with where frustration is. Where's frustration?
Heart.
Heart. Okay, I want to give up. Where is that in your body?
On the what?
Where is I want to give up sitting in your
body?
I
want to give up. My mind.
Okay, and then this I'm out of control, or let myself get out of control. Where is that?
Stomach.
Okay. Now of those four, go ahead and just connect with those four at once. You've kind of identified where they are in your body. Take a deep breath, stay connected to the breath, and which one's speaking loudest to you?
Pancreas.
Okay, so that's this failure. energy, right? That was the first thing that you said was failure in the pancreas. Am I remembering right?
I think so.
Okay, so connect with failure. Really let yourself feel it. Like, be fully present, open your heart to just, and talk to your pancreas, you know, in your mind, just say, all right, failure that's sitting in my pancreas. Let yourself be seen, right? Experience kind of what comes up for you. Do you feel any physical responses? Do you feel like yourself wanting to shut off or close in? Just observe those.
Stuffed is the only word that comes up.
Stuffed. Okay. All right. That's all right. Okay. So connect with stuffed and say, hey, stuffed, what message do you have for me? And all you need is the next breadcrumb. So trust the first thing that comes to mind, even if it doesn't make sense.
Compassion.
Compassion. Okay. All right. Connect with compassion. So we're just in this like organic flow of observation. Like, all right, I'm just listening for what comes and what I see. I'm not trying to force anything. I'm not trying to process anything. Compassion.
Giving.
Giving. Okay.
Giving is next.
Okay. Make sure you're breathing.
Laughing to myself.
They say that last one again, you're breaking up just a little bit. Say that one again.
Lack of giving to myself. Lack of giving to myself.
There we go. Okay. And lack of giving to yourself, connect with that. Like, what's holding you back from giving to yourself?
Unhappy.
Okay. Where's unhappy in your body?
My heart.
All right, hold your heart. The reason why, so for everyone else on here, the reason why I ask that question a lot is because the spirit likes to like exit the body a lot. Because when things get uncomfortable, there's kind of a disconnect that happens with the spirit and the body. And when you're continually breathing and connecting to the body, not only does that calm down the lower brain, that parasympathetic nervous system, you're bringing it down, but it's reminding you to be present and connected. Does that make sense? Just a really simple connection tool. Okay, so connect with that. Take a deep breath. So this is the step of observation where now you get to either connect to inspired thought, or you get to make a conscious choice. Okay, so now I'm getting more clear. The dust is starting to settle. I'm noticing that a lack of taking care of myself or loving myself. And what else is coming up for you?
Hurt. I've had a lot of hurt.
Yeah. So instead of, you see how like suddenly you have this clear vision of, wow, there's hurt here that hasn't been addressed. Not really. And how cool is it that your subconscious mind and your body is saying, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get your attention, Kayleen. So I'm going to pack on a bunch more weight, and I'm going to stuff a bunch more food in my mouth, and I'm going to show you what a failure you are. So you're going to finally see that I am hurting and you haven't been paying attention to me. So instead of like the shame of like, I'm such a failure, it's like, oh, you've been trying to get my attention. It's that toddler who's screaming at you, and you ignored that part of you for so long. And now it's like, finally, it's got your attention. So I'm getting emotional right now because this is one of the parts I get so excited about with this process. This is the part where you celebrate. And you're like, I can see clearly now, the rain is gone, right? Like you suddenly can see clearly, and it's like, oh, and it's like that, you just want to don't you just have this feeling that you just want to love? Like, give yourself a hug and like compassion? I don't know. I'm feeling that for you. But can you see, are you shifting into that a little bit?
I'm feeling some peace coming here.
Yes, yes. And so your next step could possibly be, because that would be the last step of the observational process. I give you guys a really nifty handout even that shows you the steps, and would be, okay, what's my next step? And maybe your next step is to just observe that hurt, to spend some time in stillness, maybe journaling, maybe at nighttime you just give yourself a big hug and just tell yourself, man, I'm sorry I've ignored all this hurt, and teach me, show me what, like you're bringing that metaphorical toddler onto your lap who's been crying and screaming for attention, and you're saying, all right, I'm ready to listen. And it gets uncomfortable. This is where you're like, it can get really uncomfortable if it's a really deep hurt, right? If it's deep trauma or whatever. And so it's maybe another level of letting the dust settle, of really allowing that time that it takes to heal the heart. And this sometimes just takes days or weeks or months, and sometimes years for some things, right? Because your brain has been wired a certain way to think and react a certain way because of those hurts. And as you heal those hurts, then you can start changing your brain. And you know all this because you've been through all the things and learned about the brain and have that background. But I'm just excited that you're feeling more peace, and that is a great start. And so one of the things that I would like to invite you to as well is connect with, are you familiar with EFT, aren't you? Emotional Freedom Technique. So there's a I really love their script. Oops, I'm losing you. Are you still there? Uh-oh, we're losing service here. Kayleen, are you there still?
There.
Okay, you're breaking up again.
You
So
froze.
What's that? So you're breaking.
Okay, I said you were frozen, but now I
there
can
we are.
see you
Okay,
now.
good. Technology, we're so grateful for it. And sometimes it just, we get so spoiled, we get so spoiled with how instant it is. And then when it kind of messes up, we're like, stop, I need to communicate. So maybe spend some time just saying, even though, because you might still have some of that residual shame or judgment come up for you of, man, I really let myself go and I was on a roll, and man, I'm behind now. And you might feel some of that judgment. Let yourself feel it as it comes up. Just because I say shame and judgment isn't allowed in observation, the minute you acknowledge that it's there and say, okay, shame and judgment, I love you anyway, you shift out of it. You're still allowing it to be seen and felt, because it's sort of that natural, and it's part of sort of your authentic feelings and emotions that might come up for you. So be cautious of that tendency to want to stuff the shame, because it's like, oh, that's not allowed in observation, because it actually is allowed, but there just needs to be a moment of acknowledgement of shame and judgment. You're not in charge here, right?
Well, and acknowledge it and recognize it, and so that we can let it go. And that's one thing with me being busy this whole summer, is I have not taken time to do that.
Yeah.
And I know I need to. And I know if I do, it will help.
Yeah.
So thank you for
You're
the reminder
welcome.
that I just need to hear.
You're welcome. And just be kind.
Yeah,
even though I may have, quote unquote, I may observe or feel some judgment about letting myself go, like, I'm so grateful that I see this hurt now. I'm so grateful that now I'm in a position and I'm gaining the tools to actually deal with this pain. And now just think about how much better when you release that weight again, then it's going to be forever, because you've already connected with what was holding you back from keeping it off long term. And so Guru is all about, guys, long term change. This is not just about quick fixing. This is about rewiring, reprogramming the brain, one little breadcrumb, one little moment of observation at a time, one little moment of just loving yourself a little more. And we want long-term results, right? Like that's what really matters to me most. I've done so many quick fix schemes, in my life that like I'm like the queen of like giant bursts of success and then like piddling out and dying out for 2 years and then like, so like I get that of like having success and then, but it's really just dealing with what those blocks are, right? And seeing them as a signal and an alarm going off inside of you rather than the fact that you failed. Because the truth is, you didn't fail. You released over 80 pounds. Like, what in the world? That was huge, right? And you learned so much in the process and you never lost that. The learning, those lessons are still there, right? There was just some
Well, and
hidden.
I had to go through. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, and through that process, that's been a whole emotional aspect with the weight loss, because as I lost more and more, it was just like I'm losing part of myself, and who am I without this? And so I've had to address that, and I think I didn't address all of it, and that's part of why part of me is coming back, because um, I was missing part of myself.
And
I
she's
don't
like,
know.
hey, hello, don't leave me in the dust. I'm still here, you know?
I know, and
Yeah.
I still am me without that, but there's still a lot. There's still a lot that needs to be addressed. That's for sure.
Well, we
I'm
talk,
not dead and I'm not done, so I'm just gonna keep working.
well, and not everybody that comes on here and takes my program believes in an eternal perspective, but I do. And there's an eternal perspective here, and that when we can remember that we have an eternity, that we are just, there's not really a destination, there's milestones of growth, right? We can have a vision. That's why I don't like the word goals, because it's like this destination mentality. And then what? We get there and then what? Are we happier? Not always. And so it's like, if we can't learn how to be happy and at peace right now, we won't ever be. And so it's learning how to live fully in the moment. And then the progression happens naturally. It's just it's a natural result of being fully connected, fully present, living our life in full choice and consciousness and awareness. And I just want to help people do that. So Kayleen, thank you. We're almost out of time. Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
volunteering and being vulnerable. I hope that was helpful to you. And thank you
It was.
everyone
Thank you.
else for coming on. Just if you, those of you that are on, those of you that are going to watch this later, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and to
Can I
watch
say
this.
something? Can
Yeah.
I say something? For those that'll watch this later, if you haven't had a chance to get to know Kara, and you haven't had a chance to do her course and her classes and things that she does, now's the time to do it, because you are amazing. And she is very, very in tune. And this is something that we all need. And I know I need it again, or I wouldn't have been guided to this today. So thank you.
Well, that was unexpected and awesome. Thank you so much. And I received that really generous compliment. I'm just a person, and I'm a person who has been through a lot, and a person who's learned a lot, and a person who just really wants to pay forward what I've learned and what I'm feeling inspired to do. And I see us all on the same plane and the same journey, learning and growing together. And there's just too many people hurting right now, too many people stuck, too many people that like are living under their potential, and because they just can't see through the fog of the chaos of their own emotions, their own trigger, to be able to even function or see straight, and be able to like really claim their power as divine beings of creation. And so yeah, I hope you guys join us. It's going to be awesome. So we start Monday at 10 a.m. You can go to my website, which is beautifullifementoring.vipmembervault.com, and I'll put the link in, well, I don't know. if you're interested, message me and I'll send you the link to my site, and I'll be posting it as well a few times on Facebook. And it's definitely, let's just say that what I'm doing in this course would typically cost from another, program or mentor up into the thousands. And so it's only $149 for the course. So hopefully you'll join us, and I know you won't regret it, I promise. So thanks for coming on, and hopefully I get to see your beautiful faces again on Monday morning. We'll talk to you later. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.